The Death of Grass continues, as read by the bathroom reader. I am covering for the Plurality Report, who is currently yelling, "Really, Kevin Spacey? You? You want them released? Really? You? You pedophile piece of shit. Hope you burn for that." Oh yeah. Chapter 11. Anne tried to stop him when she saw him trying to tie a large white handkerchief on the end of a stick. "You can't do that. They'll shoot you." John shook his head. "No, they won't." "They fired on all of us, without provocation. They'll fire at you, too." "Without provocation? A whole gang of us marching up the road with arms? It was as much my mistake as theirs. I should have realized how their minds would work." "Their minds? David's?" "No, probably not David's. He can hardly be manning the fence all the time. God knows who it is. Anyway, it's a different thing with one man, unarmed, under a flag of truce. There's no reason why they should fire." "But they might." "They won't." But he had an odd feeling as he walked along the middle of the road towards the fence, his white flag held above his head. It was not exactly fear. It seemed to him that it was nearer to exhilaration, the sense of fatigue allied to excitement that he had sometimes known in fevers. He began to measure his paces, counting soundlessly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In front of him, he saw that the barrel of the machine gun poked through a hole in the fence a good 10 feet above the ground, not far from the top. David must have built a platform on the other side. He stopped 7 or 8 feet from the fence and looked up. From somewhere near the gun muzzle, a voice said, "Well, what are you after?" John said, "I'd like to have a word with David Custance." "Would you now? He's busy, and the answer's no anyway." "He's my brother." There was a moment's silence. Then the voice said, "His brother's in London. Who do you say you are?" "I'm John Custance. We got away from London. It's taken us some time to travel up here. Can I see him?" "Wait a minute." There was a low murmur of voices. John could not quite catch what was said. "All right, you can wait there. We're sending up to the farm for him." John walked a few paces and stared into the Lepe. Who knows? From beyond the fence he heard a car engine start up and then fade away along the road up the valley. It sounded like David's utility. He wondered how much petrol they would have in store inside Blind Gill. Probably not much. It didn't matter, really. The sooner people got used to a world deprived of the internal combustion engine, as well as the old-fashioned beasts of burden, the better. He called up to the man behind the fence. "The people with me, can they come out of the ditch without being shot at?" "They can stay where they are." "But there's no point in it. What's the objection to their being on the road?" "The ditch is good enough." John thought of arguing, and then decided against it. Anyone on the other side of the fence was someone they would have to live with. If this fellow wanted to exercise his brief authority, it was best to put up with it. His own disquiet had been allayed by the promptness with which it had been agreed to send for David. That at least removed the fear that he might have lost control of the valley. He said, "This is probably John, okay? I'll walk along and tell my lot what's happening." The voice was indifferent. "Please yourself, but keep them off the road." Pirrie was sitting up and taking notice now. He listened to what John had to tell them, but made no comment. Roger said, "You think it's going to be all right, then?" "I don't see why not. The bloke behind the machine gun may be a bit trigger-happy, but they won't bother us once we're behind him." "He don't seem very anxious to let us get behind him," Alf Parsons says. "Carrying out orders." "Hello!" There was the sound of an engine approaching. It halted behind the barrier. "That will be David." John got to his feet again. "Anne, you could come along and have a word with him too." "Isn't it a risk?" Roger asked. "Hardly. David's there now," Anne said. "Davy would like to come too, I should think, and Mary." "Of course." Pirrie said, "No." He spoke softly, but with finality. John looked at him. "Why? What's wrong?" "I think they would be safer here," Pirrie said. He paused. I don't think you should all go along there together. It took several seconds for John to grasp the implication. He only did so then because the remark came from Pirrie, and so could be founded only on an utterly cynical realism. Well, he said at last, that tells me something about how you would act in my place, doesn't it? Pirrie smiled. Anne said, What's the matter? John heard David's voice calling in the distance. John! Nothing, he said. Never mind, Anne. You stay here. It won't take me long to fix things with David. He had half expected the gate in the fence to open as he approached, but he realized that caution, possibly excessive, but on the whole justified, might prevent this until John's status, and the status of the troop that accompanied him, had been settled. He stood under the fence, still blind to whatever was happening on the other side of it. He said, Dave, is that you? He heard David's voice. Yes, of course. Open it. How the devil is he going to get in if you don't? He saw the muzzle of the gun waggle as the gate beneath it opened slightly. No chances were being taken. He squeezed through the gap and saw David waiting for him. They took each other's hands. The gate closed behind him. How did you make it? David asked. Where's Davy and Anne and Mary? Back there, hiding in a ditch. Your machine gunner damn near killed us all. David stared at him. I can't believe it. I told the people at the gate to look out for you, but I never believed you would get here. The news of the ban on travel and then the rioting and rumors of bombing. I'd given you up. It's a long story, John said. It can wait. Can I bring my lot in first? Your lot? You mean? They told me there was a mob on the road. John nodded. A mob, 34 of them, 10 being children. We've all been on the road for some time. I brought them here. He was looking at David's face. He had seen the expression only once before that he could remember, when, after their grandfather's death, they had heard that the whole estate was being left to David. It showed guilt and embarrassment. David said, It's a bit difficult, Johnny. In what way? We're crowded out already. When things began getting bad, the locals began to come in. The Rivers from Stonebeck and so on. It was their boy who got hold of the machine gun from an army unit near Windermere. 3 or 4 of the men came with him. It spread thin. We'll manage all right, but there's no margin for accidents, a potato failure, or anything like that. My 34 will spread it thinner, John said, but they'll work for their keep. I'll answer for that. That's not the point, David said. The land will only support so many. We're over the mark now. A brief silence followed. The Lepe rushed past on their right, the man tending a fire on which a pot was simmering, and the 2 men upon the platform were both out of earshot. Nevertheless, John found himself lowering his voice. He said, What do you suggest? That we turn back towards London? David grasped his arm. Good God, no. Don't be a fool. I'm trying to tell you. I can make room for you and Anne and the children, but not for the others. Dave, you've got to make room for them. You can do, and you must. Dave shook his head. I would if I could. Don't you understand? Those people aren't the first we've had to turn away. There have been others. Some of them were relations of people already here. We've had to be hard. I've always told them that you and your family must come in if you got here. But 34? It's impossible. Even if I agreed, the others would never let me. It's your land. No one holds land except by consent. They are in the majority, Johnny. I know you don't like the idea of abandoning the people you've been traveling with, but you will have to. There's no alternative. There's always an alternative. None. Bring them here, Anne and the children. You can make some excuse for that. The others, they've got arms, haven't they? They'll manage all right. You've not been out there. Their eyes met again. David said, I know you won't like doing it, but you must. You can't put the safety of those others before Anne and the children. John laughed. The 2 men on the platform looked down at them. Pirrie, John said. He must be psychic. Pirrie? One of my lot. I don't think we should have gotten through without him. I was going to bring Anne and the children with me when I came to meet you. He put a stop to it. He made them stay behind. I saw that he was protecting himself and the others against a double cross, and I was righteously indignant. Now, if I did have them here inside the fence, I wonder what I would have done. David said, "This is serious. Can't you fool him somehow?" Fool him? Not Pirrie. John looked away, up the long vista of Blind Gill, snug beneath its protecting hills. He said slowly, "If you turn those others down, you're turning us down. You're turning Davy down. This man, Pirrie, I might persuade them to let one other in with you. Can he be bribed?" "Undoubtedly, but the idea will have entered the heads of the others by now, particularly since I shall have to tell them they can't just walk in as they had been hoping. There isn't a hope of my getting the children in here without them all coming." "There must be some way." "That's what I said to you, isn't it? We aren't free agents any longer, though." He stared at his brother. "In a way, we're enemies." No. We'll find a way round this. Perhaps, if you were to go back, and then I got our people to run a sortie against you, under machine gun cover, you could have passed the word to Anne and the children to lie still until we had chased them away. John smiled ironically. "Even if I were prepared to do it, it wouldn't work. Mine have been blooded. The ditch makes a fair cover. The machine gun isn't going to scare them." "Then, I don't know. But there must be something." John looked up the valley again. The fields were well cropped, mostly with potatoes. "Anne will be wondering, not to mention the others. I shall have to get back." "What's it to be, Dave?" He had already come to his own decision, and the agony of his brother's uncertainty could not touch that grimness. Dave said at last, forcing the words out, "I'll talk to them. Come back in an hour. I'll see what they say about letting the others in. Or perhaps we'll think of something in that time. Try to think of something as well, Johnny." John nodded. "I'll try. So long, Dave." Dave had looked at him miserably. "Give my love to them all. To Davy." John said, "Yes, of course I will." The two men came down from the platform and unbarred the gate again. John squeezed through. He did not look at David as he went. They were waiting for him as he dropped into the ditch. He saw from their faces that they expected only bad news. Any news was bad that was not signaled by the gate to the valley thrown open and immediate beckoning in. "How'd it go, Mr. Custance?" Noah Blennett asked. "Not well," he told them, badly, but passing quickly over the invitation to his own family to come in. When he had finished, Roger said, "I can see their point of view. He can make room for you and Anne and the children. He can't do anything. The others had agreed about that, and apparently they're willing to stick by it." "You take it, Johnny. You've brought us up here. We haven't lost anything by it, and there's no sense in everyone missing the chance because we can't all have it." The murmur from the others was uncertain enough to be tempting. "It's been offered," he thought, "that they won't stop me if I take it straight away while they're still shocked by their own generosity." Okay, wow, this PDF version does not seem to tell me the quotation marks of speech. Okay, let me go over that again. The murmur from the others was uncertain enough to be tempting. "It's been offered," he thought, and they won't stop me if I take it straight away while they're still shocked by their own generosity. Take Anne and Mary and Davy up to the gates and see them open and the valley beyond. He looked at Pirrie. Pirrie returned the look calmly. His small right hand, the fingers still carefully manicured, rested on the butt of his rifle. Seeing the bubble of temptation pricked, He wondered how he would have reacted if he had had the real rather than the apparent freedom of action. The feudal baron, he thought, and ready to sell out his followers as cheerfully as that. Probably they had been like that, most of them anyway. He said, looking at Pirrie, "I've been thinking it over. Quite frankly, I don't think there's any hope at all of my brother persuading the others to let us all in." As he said, some of them have seen their own relations turned back. That leaves us two alternatives: turning back ourselves and looking for a home somewhere else, or fighting our way into the valley and taking it over. Anne said, "No," in a shocked voice. Davy said, "Do you mean fighting Uncle Dave, Daddy?" The others stayed silent. "We don't have to decide straight away," John said. "Until I've seen my brother again, I suppose we can say there's an outside chance of managing it peaceably. But you can be thinking it over." Roger said, "I still think you ought to take what's offered to you, Johnny." This time there was no kind of response. The moment of indecision passed. John reflected wryly. The followers had realized the Baron's duty toward them again. Alf Parsons asked, "What do you think, Mr. Custance?" "I'll keep my opinion until I come back next time," John said. "You be thinking it over." Pirrie still did not speak, but he smiled slowly. With the bandage round his head, he looked a frail and innocent old man. Jane sat close by him, her pose protective. It was not until John was on the point of going back to the gate that Pirrie said anything. Then he said, "You'll look things over, of course, from inside." "Of course," John said. If there had been any hope in his mind of David persuading the others in the valley to relent, it would have vanished the moment he saw his brother's face again. 4 or 5 other men had accompanied him back to the fence, presumably to help the 3 already on guard in the event of John's troops being reluctant to accept their dismissal. There was, John noticed, a telephone point just inside the fence, so that the men there could summon help quickly in the event of a situation looking dangerous. He glanced about him, looking for further details of the valley's defenses. David said, "They won't agree, Johnny. We couldn't really expect them to." The men who had come with him stayed close by, making no pretense of offering privacy to the brothers. As much as anything, this showed John the powerlessness of his brother's position. He nodded. "So we have to take to the road again. I gave Davy your love. I'm sorry you couldn't have seen him."
"Look," David said, "I've been thinking. There is a way." He spoke with a feverish earnestness. "You can do it."
John looked at him in inquiry. He had been noting the angle of the fence made with the river.
"Tell them it's no good," David said, "that you will have to find somewhere else, but don't travel too far tonight. Arrange things so that you and Anne and the children can slip away and then come back here. You'll be let in. I'll stay here tonight to make sure."
John recognized the soundness of the scheme for other people under other conditions, but he was not tempted by it. In any case, David was underestimating the intervention Pirrie might make in the plan, a reasonable error for anyone who did not know Pirrie. He said slowly, "Yes, I think that might work. It's worth trying anyway, but I don't want to have the kids mown down by that gun of yours in the night." David said eagerly, "There's no fear of that. Give me our old curlew whistle as you come along the road, and it's full moon." "Yes," John said, "so it is." Chapter 12. Let's do it. John dropped down into the ditch where they all were. He said immediately, "We shan't get in there peaceably. They won't budge. My brothers tried them, but it's no good. So we have the alternatives I spoke of. Going somewhere else, or fighting our way into Blind Gill. Have you thought about it?" There was a silence. Alf Parsons broke it.
"It's up to you, Mr. Custance. You know that. We shall do whatever you think is best."
"Right. One thing first. My brother looks like me, and he's wearing blue overalls and a gray and white check shirt. I'm telling you this so you can watch out for him. I don't want him hurt, if it can be helped." Joe Harris said, "We're having a go then, Mr. Custance."
Yes, not now. Tonight. Now we are going to beat an orderly retreat out of the range of the vision of the people on the fence. It's got to look as though we've given up the idea of getting in. Our only hope is having the advantage of surprise." They obeyed at once, scrambling out of the ditch and heading back down the road, away from the valley. John walked at the rear, and Roger and Pirrie walked with him. Roger said, "I still think you are doing the wrong thing, Johnny. You could leave us and take the family back. They would have you," Pirrie remarked in a speculative tone. "I don't think it's going to be easy, even as a surprise attack," he looked at John, "unless you know a way of getting in over the hills." "No. Even if there were a reasonable way, it wouldn't do. The hillsides are steep in there. It would be impossible to avoid starting small slides of stones, and once they knew where we were, we should offer a target they couldn't miss." "I take it," Pirrie said, "that you do not contemplate rushing that fence with a Vickers machine gun behind it?" "No." John looked at Pirrie closely. "How do you feel now?" "Normal." "Fit enough to wade half a mile through a river that's cold even at this time of year?" "Yes." They were both watching him in inquiry. John said, "My brother put a fence across the gap between hill and river, but he took it for granted the river was fence enough in itself. By the banks it's deep as well as swift. There have been enough cattle drowned in it, and quite a few men. But I fell in it from the other side when I was a child, and I didn't drown. There's a shelf just about the middle of the river. Even as a boy of 11 I could stand there with my head well above water." Roger asked, "Are you suggesting we all wade up the river? They would see us, surely. And what about getting out of it? If it's as deep by the banks as you say." Pirrie, as John had anticipated, had grasped the idea without the need for elaboration. "I am to knock out the machine gun," he suggested. "And the rest of you?" "I'm coming with you," John said. "I'll take one of the other rifles. I'm not likely to succeed if you fail, but it provides us with an extra chance. Roger, you've got to take that fence once we've got the gun quiet. You can get the men up within 100 yards of it, along the ditch. The fence is climbable. They will bring the gun round to bear on us as soon as they are under fire from the rear. That's when you take our lot in." Roger said doubtfully, "Will it work?" It was Pirrie who answered him. "Yes, I believe it will." He stood with Anne, looking at the children as they lay asleep on the ground. Davy and Spooks and Steve tangled up together, and Mary, a little apart, her head pillowed on an out-thrust arm. He told her then, in an undertone, of David's plan. When he had finished, she said, "Why didn't you? We could have done it. We could have gotten away from Pirrie somehow," she shivered. "Killed him if necessary. There's been enough killing of innocent people, and now there's going to be more. Oh, why didn't you take it? Can't we still?" The sun had gone down, and the moon was yet to rise. It was quite dark. He could not see much of her face, nor she of his. He said, "I'm glad of Pirrie." "Glad?" "Yes. I needed the thought of that trigger finger of his to stiffen me, but it only stiffened me into taking the right course. And some of the things I've had to do to get us here have been nasty. I couldn't have justified them even to myself, except in the hope that it would all be different once we got to the valley." "It will be different." "I hope so. That's why I won't pay for admission in treachery." "Treachery?" "To the rest of them." He nodded his head towards the others. "It would be treachery to abandon them now." "I don't understand." Anne shook her head. "I don't begin to understand. Isn't it treachery to David to force a way in?" "David isn't a free agent. If he were, he would have let us all in. You know that. Think, Anne, leaving Roger and Olivia outside. And Steve and Spooks. What would you tell Davy? And all these other poor devils. Jane, yes, and Pirrie. How much you dislike him. We should never have got near the valley without him." Anne looked down at the sleeping children. "All I can think is that we could have been safe in the valley tonight without any fighting." "But with nasty memories." "We have those anyway." "Not in the same way." She paused for a while. "You're the leader, aren't you? The medieval chieftain, you said so yourself." John shrugged. "Does that matter?" "It does to you. I see that now. More than our safety and the children's," he said gently. "Anne, darling, What are you talking about? Duty, that's it, isn't it? It wasn't really Roger and Olivia, Steve and Spooks, you were thinking about. Not them as persons. It was your own honor, the honor of the chieftain. You aren't just a person yourself any longer. You're a figurehead as well. Tomorrow it will be all over. We can forget about it all then. No. You have convinced me before, but I know better now. You've changed, and you can't change back.
I've not changed.
When you're king of Blind Gill, how long will it be, I wonder, before they make a crown for you? The risky part, John thought, was the stretch between the bend of the river and the point, some 30 yards from the fence, where the shadow of the hill cancelled out the moonlight. If they had left it until the moon was fully risen, the project would have been almost impossible, for the moonlight was brilliant and they had to pass within yards of the defenders. As it was, they were exposed, for some 25 yards, to any close scrutiny that the people behind the fence turned on the river. The reasonable hope was that their attention would be focused on the obvious approach by road rather than the apparently impractical approach up so swift and deep a river as the Lepe. Pirrie, in front of him, crouched down so that only his head and shoulders, and one hand holding the rifle on his shoulder, were out of the water, and John followed suit. The water was even colder than John remembered it as being, and the effort of struggling forward against the current was an exhausting one. Once or twice, Pirrie slipped, and he had to hold him. It was a consolation that the noise of the river would cloak any noise they might make. They pushed ahead, and at last, to their relief, found themselves clear of the moonlight. The hill's shadow was long, but of no great width. They could see the moonlit road and the fence quite plainly. John had not been sure of this beforehand, and it raised his hopes still further. If the fence had been in shadow, even Pirrie's marksmanship might not have availed them. When they were not more than 10 yards from the fence, Pirrie stopped. John whispered urgently, "What is it?" He heard Pirrie draw gasping breaths. "I'm exhausted." It was a shock to remember that Pirrie was an old man, and of frail physique, who had made a harassing journey and only a few hours before had been knocked over by a bullet. John braced himself and put his free arm round Pirrie's waist. He said softly, "Rest a minute. If it's too much for you, go back. I can carry on by myself." They stayed like that for several seconds. Pirrie was shuddering against John's body. Then he pulled himself upright. He gasped, "Oh, all right now." "Are you sure?" Making no answer, Pirrie waded on. They were abreast of the fence, and then beyond it. John looked back. The valley's defenses were outlined in the moon's soft radiance. There were 3 men on the platform, and another 3 or 4 huddled on the ground behind it, presumably asleep. He whispered to Pirrie, "Here?" "Give ourselves a chance," said Pirrie. "Lengthen the range. I can hit them at another 20 yards. His voice seemed stronger again. Pirrie was probably indestructible, John reflected. He trudged after him through the swirling water, aware of fatigue now in his own limbs, doubling the water's drag. Pirrie stopped at last and turned, bracing himself against the current. They were about 25 yards inside the valley. John stood at his left elbow. "Try for the one on the right," Pirrie said. "I'll manage the other 2. "The machine gun first," John said. Pirrie did not bother to reply to that. He threw up his rifle to his shoulder, and John, more slowly, did the same. Pirrie's rifle cracked viciously, and in the moonlight the figure of the man behind the machine gun straightened up, cried in pain, and went down again, clutching at the edge of the platform and missing it. John fired for his own target, but did not hit. More surprisingly, Pirrie's second shot failed its own mark. Both men remaining on the platform raced for the machine gun and tried to swing it round. Pirrie fired again as they did so, and one of them slumped across it. The other pushed him free and managed to turn it. John and Pirrie fired again unsuccessfully. The figures beneath the platform had risen and were reaching for guns. Then the machine gun began to sputter in a staccato rhythm of sound and flame. It did not manage much more than a dozen rounds before Pirrie got his third victim. and the deadly chatter stopped. The men on the ground had begun to fire at them now, but the whine of individual bullets seemed irrelevant. Pirrie said, "The ladder! Keep them off the platform!" His voice was weaker again, but John saw him reload, and, with his usual snatched but unwavering aim, hit yet another figure, which had begun to climb the ladder to the platform. John tried to listen for sounds of Roger and the others beyond the fence, but he could hear nothing. They must have reached the fence by now. He looked at the black line of the fence's top, searching for the figures that should be climbing over it. Suddenly, in an entirely natural and unforced tone, Pirrie said, "Take this." He was holding out his rifle. John said, "Why?" "You fool. I'm hit." A bullet whined towards them across the surface of the water. John could see, examining him closely, that his shirt was holed and bloody at the shoulder. He took the gun, dropping the one he had into the river. "Hang on to me," he told Pirrie. "Never mind that. The ladder." There was another figure on the ladder. John fired, reloaded, and fired again. The third shot succeeded. He turned to Pirrie. "Now," he began. But Pirrie was gone. John thought he saw his body several yards downstream, but it was difficult to be sure. He looked back to the more important concern, the fence. Figures were swarming across the top, and one already had hold of the machine gun, tilting it downwards. He saw the remaining defenders throw their guns away, and then, chilled and utterly tired, began looking for the best place to get into the bank. Chapter 13. Into this room he had come with David, side by side, their fingers locked together to calm each other's fear and uncertainty before the mystery of death, to see the corpse of Grandfather Beverley. The room had changed very little in a score of years. David had never had any desire to modernize his surroundings. Anne said, "Darling, I'm sorry for what I said last night." He did not answer. "It is going to be different now. You were right." And in the afternoon of that faraway day, the solicitor had come up from Lepe, and there had been the reading of the will, and David's embarrassment and guilt when they learned that all had been left to him, money as well as land, because a good farmer will never, if he can help it, separate the two. Well, he thought, I got it in the end. "It's not your fault. You mustn't think it is," his mother had said.
"You don't feel badly about it, do you, darling? It doesn't mean that Grandfather didn't like you, you know. He was very fond of you. He told me all about this. He knew David wanted to be a farmer and that you didn't. It means that all my money goes to you and all that your father left. You will be able to have the very best training an engineer could have. You do see that, don't you?"
He had said yes, more bewildered by his mother's seriousness than anything else. He had always expected that Blind Gill would go to David. Neither property nor money counted for anything against his one overwhelming feeling of distaste, repugnance for the fact and presence of his grandfather's death. Now that the funeral was over and the blinds had gone up again, he wanted only to forget that grimness and shadow.
"You will have quite enough, darling,"
his mother had said. He had nodded impatiently, eager to be free of this conversation, which was a last link with the unpleasantness of death. He took as little note of the urgency of his mother's tone as he had done of her increasing pallor and thinness in the past year. He did not know, as she did, that her own life had only a short time to run. "Johnny," Anne said. She came and put her hands on his shoulders. "You must snap out of it." After that, he thought, the holidays with aunts and his comradeship with David, all the deeper for their shared isolation. Had there been, beneath all that, a resentment of what his brother had, a hatred concealed even from himself? He could not believe it, but the thought nagged him and would not be quieted. "Everything's going to be all right," Anne said. "The children can grow up here in peace, even if the world is in ruins. Davy will farm the valley land." She glanced at the body lying on the bed. It was David. David wanted that more than anything.
John spoke then. He'll do more than farm it, won't he? He will own it. It's a nice bit of land. Not as much as Cain left to Enoch, though.
You mustn't talk like that. And it wasn't you who killed David. It was Pirrie.
Was it? I don't know. We'll blame Pirrie, shall we? And Pirrie is gone, washed away with the river, and so the land flows with milk and honey again, and with innocence. Is that all right?
John, it was Pirrie.
He looked at her. Pirrie gave me his gun. He must have known then that he was finished. And when I saw that he had gone under, I thought of throwing it after him. That was the gun which brought us here to the valley, killing its way across England. I could have got to the shore more easily without it, and I was deadly tired, but I hung on to it.
You can still throw it away. You don't have to keep it.
No, Pirrie was right. You don't throw away a good weapon. He looked at the rifle, resting against the dressing table. It will be Davy's, when he is old enough. She shrank a little.
No, he won't need it. It will be peace then.
Enoch was a man of peace. He lived in the city which his father built for him, but he kept his father's dagger in his belt. He went to the bed, bent down, and kissed his brother's face. He had kissed another dead face only a few days before, but centuries lay between the two salutations. As he turned away towards the door, Anne asked,
"Where are you going?"
"There's a lot to do. A city to be built." The end. This has been a one-take toilet top audiobook production as read by the bathroom reader. Thanks for listening. Did you like the sound effects?